Welcome to yet another edition of Formula Drift Insider. I am your travel-weary host, Ryan Sage. I say travel-weary because Formula Drift just had the tremendous opportunity to head down to South Africa to meet some amazing people. Stay tuned because in coming weeks we may have more to share on this new development. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you to all our new friends and for their generous hospitality. Okay, now on to the show. This week, we dissect the latest round of Formula Drift from Evergreen Speedway in Monroe, Washington, and we'll be giving you the world debut of a special video project from Year Productions on this year's FD Singapore. Seattle, unlike any other round, saw the biggest changes to date with respects to the individual championship and the Tires.com Triple Crown. So in this episode, we'll take a look at some of the more significant battles at this amazing event. First, we start with Justin Pollock versus Jeremy Lowe. In the very first run of the battle with Justin leading, JTP came off the bank and overshot the line with more than 2 tires, which was one of the 8 defined zeros that the judges discussed in the drivers' meeting. This is the shot that the judges saw, and it seemed clear that both of his rear tires were off. This would give Justin a 0 on his lead run. The second run would pretty much be inconsequential, and Jeremy Lowe would get a huge victory against the current leader, JTP. Recently, a secondary shot of on-camera footage of JTP's vehicle from the perspective of Jeremy Lowe's car has been circulating on the internet. This shot seems to be a little less clear, but you decide for yourself if it was 2 tires off or not. Bear in mind that the original shot was what Formula Drift provided to the judges. Our next big battle was in the top 16 with Rhys Millen versus Daijiro Yoshihara. Now with JTP going out in the top 32, this left the door open for Dai to move up in the championship. On the first run, it looked like Dai had an advantage with Rhys maintaining good proximity after falling behind on the start, but Rhys sacrificed a bit of angle to get proximity. However, on the second run with Dai in the chase, Rhys was able to get Dai to push too hard, and the Japanese driver sent his S13 off track to what the judges deemed as 2 tires off. Dai would 0 out in his second run, and just like in 2011, Rhys Millen is once again surging in 2012. Now, wouldn't you have guessed it, our next battle is 2 #1 buddies in the series. 2 peas in a pod, 2 amigos. I'm referring to Daigo Saito and Conrad Grunwald. The rivalry of the year, bar none, is these 2 drivers. Multiple one more times, crazy controversial calls, and the uncanny coincidence that always seems to find a way for these 2 drivers to meet each other on the grid. Well, up to this point, Daigo is undefeated against Conrad, but this time Conrad would pull out all the stops to give everything he had against Saito. On the first run, it was a really amazing battle with Conrad running a nice high line, close to the wall, and good angle. Daigo was there on proximity pretty much the entire time and kept pace with Conrad, minus a bit of angle in some areas. Now on the second run, it got tricky. I should preface that the judges laid down a restart cone on this course. Now what that allows a chase driver to do is that if they believe they received an unfair start from the lead driver, they can simply stop before the restart cone and the battle would begin again. This was enacted so that it at least attempts to create an environment for clean starts. Well, Conrad used this rule to the maximum, calling restart not once, but twice, much to the disliking of the fans. Nonetheless, it was his right to do so, since there isn't a rule saying how many times you can restart a battle. But this area of competition seems to be a slippery slope and inherently the potential for messiness. Something to think about for sure. On the second run, once Conrad felt he received a good start, he was right next to Daigo on entry. He dove in and then fell off, letting Daigo surge out ahead. Daigo would pull a gap, but Conrad would pull him in by the latter part of the power alley. And as they transitioned to the finish line, Daigo would have a major bobble, go offline, and almost spin. The judges would call the run for Conrad, and he would finally have his first victory against the Japanese driver. So now we have JTP going out in top 32, and Daijiro Yoshihara and Daigo Saito both out in top 16. So all top 3 drivers were out early, and the door was wide open for someone else. Well, as we moved on into competition, we would have 4 drivers left: Rhys Millen, Ken Gucci, Vaughn Gittin Jr., and Ryan Turk. Our first battle would see Rhys Millen and Vaughn Gittin Jr. Vaughn would lead with a nice high line with Rhys good on proximity, but a few sizable steering modulations on the bank. The second run, Rhys would have a killer lead, pulling a huge gap on JR, but then off the bank, Rhys dropped at least 1 tire and possibly 2. the judges thought that was just too much and awarded Vaughn the victory. Next, we would see Ken Gucci and Ryan Turk. The Goosh comes out strong with an incredible lead run, but Ryan has a solid chase, and most of the fans and the judges see it as about even. On the second run, Ken Gucci leaves too far of a gap to Ryan Turk, while Turk has a near flawless run with Gucci, only able to catch him near the end. The judges gave the win to Turk. So now we have Millen and Gucci for third, and Turk and Gittin for first place. Off the bat, it would be a great first run between Ken and Reese, with Gucci in the lead and Millen right there getting super close to Gucci's bumper on the exit of the power alley. On the second run, Millen would get out front with a decent lead pulling away from Gucci until the Goosh caught him in the power alley. But on the transition to the finish line, Ken gave it one last hard stab to close the gap, but in doing so, he cut the line and all his angle to get up on Millen. Though exciting to watch, the judges gave the win to Millen for third place. But it would also be the best finish of the year for the Goosh. Now on to the final with Turk and Gittin. Gittin would lead with pretty much a perfect run, but Ryan Turk was with him the entire way, maybe giving JR a slight advantage on the bank portion, and Turk also missed the first inside clip just a little bit, but it was still an amazing chase. On the next run, we would see Vaughn give a little room to Turk on entry ever so slightly, but then reel him in immediately and make zero mistakes all the way through until the finish line. It was an amazing chase, and it gave JR the nod for back-to-back victories and what amounted to a perfect event, as he also qualified #1 along with winning Seattle. Most importantly, with all the other top contenders going out early, Vaughn jumped to the top of the leaderboard in the championship chase for 2012. So now let's take a look at the top 5 drivers and where they stand going into the final 2 rounds of the season. Formula Drift has some of the best videographers out there creating some of the best short-form content on the web. Rogi, Heron, Ayala, Shreve, Chen, Brooks, you know who they are. Well, the works of these individuals has gotten noticed around the world, and because of that, one other videographer was commissioned to do a special project highlighting the most recent round of competition in Asia, Singapore. So now we introduce to you a world premiere by Ryan Davis and his Year Productions.
Welcome to Singapore for the second round of the Formula Drift Pro Championship. This year in 2012 not only marks another round of competition, but the 5th anniversary of competing here in Southeast Asia. We've expanded to different markets, including Thailand, Indonesia, and of course Malaysia. But this round is a special one, again celebrating 5 years. We've had some old usual suspects, some new blood, but everybody's out to win the championship. Even some Japanese drivers are coming to shake things up. Well, this year is unlike any other. We have a new exciting track. We're back here at Changi Exhibition Center, and it promises to be amazing both on and off track.
All right, well, that is it for this week's show. For a look at what is coming up next, we turn you over to professional hot chick and hand-cooked tire model, Erica Nagashima.
Thanks, Ryan. On the next episode of Formula Drift Insider, we have another rookie profile as we hang out with Jeremy Lowe. Ryan will give you his rundown of this year's championship as well, and an insider look into who might take the crown come Irwindale. As always, you can follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter. You can also email us on anything you would like to see by writing to insider@formulad.com. And if you want to follow me, you can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and at all the FD events. See you next time.